Hey everybody, welcome to the Get Fit Guys, quick and dirty tips to get moving and shape up. My name is Brock Armstrong, and I am the Get Fit Guy. The other day I spent some time chatting with a fellow named Galahad Clark, who is the CEO of a company called Vivobarefoot, and we talked all about the importance of going barefoot and also about the health science that is presented in the new mini documentary called Shoespiracy. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. A while ago, I wrote an article and a podcast called How to Build Strong and Pain-Free Feet that really resonated with a lot of people. Apparently, foot pain is even more of a health problem than I thought. Is going barefoot more often one possible remedy? Well, in my article, I mentioned that although most shoes are specifically designed for various aspects of athletic performance, general protection, correcting footfall, and looking good, many of them do not manage to avoid some very important factors. Things like toe boxes that press your toes together, that weaken your foot muscles and weaken nerve endings. Thick soles that reduce sensory input into the nerves of your feet. Elevated heels that limit the foot and the ankle's proper range of motion. Built-up arches that do the work your natural arch muscles and ligaments should be doing. I linked to a lot of research in that article, and the evidence is still piling up. According to a brand new study about shod and unshod walkers in the Journal of Nature, wearing shoes when we walk is changing how our feet interact with the ground below us. No matter how big our foot calluses get, shoes are still causing more issues than we imagined. Now, my guest on today's podcast, Galahad Clark, noticed these issues. And it is why he created a line of barefoot-style shoes, of which I'm a proud owner. You can check out the Magna Trail shoes if you want to see the ones I have. These issues are also why he created the mini documentary called Shoespiracy. After I watched the documentary, and I also had a good old biomechanical geek fest with Galahad all about foot health, well, I invited him on the podcast to fill us in on the when, the why, and the how often we should be spending more time barefoot. So, let's jump right into the interview with Galahad Clark. So I know you've got an interesting background, a family history of shoemakers or cobblers, so I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, hi, my name's Galahad Clark. I'm the CEO and founder of Vivobarefoot. Come from a long line of cobblers, as you say, specifically 7 generations that have been making shoes in the southwest of England for all that time. And it was actually a childhood friend of mine who came from the same little village where I grew up and where the family shoe business was that came to me with the idea of barefoot shoes. He'd taken a pair of Nike Hirachis and cut off the sole and stuck on a tennis racket cover.
Wow.
And said, this is the way shoes should be made. And to cut a long story short, I instinctively loved the idea. And then this Pandora's box of science and biomechanics and holistic health and everything you can care to imagine opened up. The less and less shoe we started to wear, and we started to learn about the anatomy and function of the foot. And, that was about a 5-year process probably. And then it was in 2012 that we finally decided to launch Vivobarefoot as a standalone brand and really to drop everything else I was doing in shoes, as we sort of believe so much in this is the way shoes should be made. And, the sort of knowledge and insight built and culminating, I think, in what we hope is just the trailer now of what will be the longer documentary Shoespiracy.
Oh, wonderful. I thought it was just a mini documentary, and that was enough for me, to be honest. So I learned a lot from the mini documentary. I can't wait to see a longer version.
Be crying out for more is the hope.
All right. Well, so what was it about that sort of deconstructed Nike shoe that actually allowed the foot to move differently, or dare I say properly?
Yeah, I mean, most shoes obviously have padding. They have a restricted shape, and generally they have some kind of support, or definitely a general lack of flexibility. And we just started making prototypes, literally just doing foot coverings around as close to our foot shape and foot function as possible. And we came at it from a fairly traditional cobbler's point of view. And by this time, there was a growing number of scientists and experts that were obviously lining up behind the foot. And, what happened in America in the early 2009, 10, and the explosion of Vibram Five Fingers, what we call, let's say, the first barefoot revolution that unfortunately has rather subsided. We now like to think that we're at the dawn of the second barefoot revolution, which is going to be a calmer, more considered, more educated, let's say, revolution against conventional shoes, back to shoes that allow the foot to do their natural thing. But you'll be more considered in the way that people understand that you just should walk before you run. And we need to sort of almost unshackle the journey back to the foot from running and start to think of looking after children's feet and just allowing ourselves to walk before we run and build up the strength in our feet before we build up the exercise.
I know when we spoke before, you had you told me something interesting that I wasn't actually anticipating. And that was that you actually have a rule, or maybe you just discourage people that are using Vivo shoes to not actually run in them.
Especially in the beginning, it's just so important to get used to less shoe. And so, my favorite marketing campaign that we've never quite done yet is don't run in our shoes. The worst thing you can do is go from wearing, let's say, conventional padded, supported, tapered shoes to then suddenly going barefoot. It's like having your arm in a cast, and then the first thing you do when you get the cast off is go and play tennis. You just take it some time to build up the strength again. And the research coming out now about walking, I'll just tell you about one of the research that's just come out that I'm not sure we were able to talk about the last time we spoke, but pretty good study in University of Liverpool. 50 young kids in their 20s with a control group just spent 6 months just walking around in barefoot shoes and the control in their normal shoes. And after 6 months, they recorded a 60% increase in foot strength.
60?
Right, which is unbelievable.
Wow.
And you can extrapolate from that it would arguably be 100% after a year. But the point is not that walking around barefoot makes your feet stronger. The point is walking around in conventional shoes takes away so much of your natural strength from your feet. So all that's happening is you're just regaining, the natural strength. Your foot's full of muscles and allowed to lay dormant because of thin toe boxes and over-supported arches and things. Those muscles atrophy. It's Wolf's law, basically. If you don't use it, you lose it.
That's a really important distinction that you just made there, because I think a lot of people don't necessarily want to have like strong feet. They're not going to lift weights with their feet, but they don't realize that foot strength is actually, like you said, just returning to sort of our natural born ability, not some sort of weightlifter foot.
Yeah, and this is it's just your base layer. And that's literally just from walking around in everyday life. That's not doing any exercise. And what you spend, you maybe spend 3 or 4 hours a week. And I mean, let's say on average, some people obviously do a lot more, some people less, doing exercise or going to the gym or whatever. But you spend probably over 100 hours walking around in your, just walking around.
Mm-hmm.
And that's obviously the really important time. And just all those little movements, even just standing, waiting for a bus, all the little micro movements going on in your feet, the balancing, the re-engaging your big toe. It's all happening all the time through gravity, just when you're standing and walking around.
So the documentary does an awesome job of explaining the difference between walking, standing, running, whatever it is, in these built-up shoes versus the way that our bare feet would actually move. But can you, for the people who haven't watched the documentary yet, and I encourage everyone to check it out, can you just sort of sum up the difference between a barefoot or a barefoot shoe versus the sort of conventional shoe with a heel and stuff?
Yeah, so we say WTF, wide, thin, and flexible in this case, but it might be WTF of normal shoes. But let's start with the 3 systems of the body, which are your skeletal system, your muscles and tendons, and your nervous system. And they all have amazingly high concentrations in your feet, where you've got 28 bones and countless other joints. And most importantly, you have your big toe, which is 4 times as thick and 4 times as dense as your other toes. And the ability for your big toe to reach out straight and act as your body's pivot and anchor is essential to natural movement. And nearly every shoe takes the big toe and shoves it up in the air, what's called toe spring in shoemaking, and sort of pushes it against the other toes. So it not only can't function, but it actually gets deformed. And most people wearing normal shoes have big toes that push up against their other toes and in many ways sort of point sort of diagonally to the middle of the foot rather than diagonally away from the foot and be bold and strong like it should be. That's the first big thing. The second big thing is your foot is designed to splay and recoil with every step. Arch is designed to be very dynamic, and any support or restriction in a normal shoe stops that foot movement. And when the foot's moving and the toes are splaying and recoiling, there's a lot of muscles and ligaments at work in that movement. And even in the ankle joint, there's a tremendous amount of shock absorption that naturally should take place in the feet. Whereas when the foot is supported and constrained, all those natural springs and levers and muscles are basically laid dormant. So the shoes being wide and flexible are essential for that natural foot motion and strength. And then arguably the most important is you have hundreds of thousands of nerve endings in the sole of your feet, rather like your hands. And so any padding underfoot, say of more than 10 millimeters, will necessarily restrict that sensory feedback from the feet. And the less good information your brain gets from your feet, the less good movement decisions it makes. And specifically, it allows, even just in walking, people to massively overstride. So even though when you walk barefoot, it's still a heel-toe gait, you just take shorter strides and the impact curve is a much more gentle one. Whereas if you sort of overstride in heels, in any kind of padded shoe, the heel hits the ground with a much more sudden impact peak. And that's what causes the problems in the knees and the lower back and everything. So in walking, it's more subtle, but built up over thousands of steps every day, it's an accumulated impact on the body. So wide, thin, and flexible shoes lead to strong, sensory, and stable feet, which is what they're designed to be like.
Now, aside from buying some Vivobarefoot shoes, what can my listeners do to start looking after the health of their feet?
Just wear less shoe in general. The point is just to disassociate barefoot from just running and bring it back to everyday life and wearing less shoe in everyday life, and especially for your kids. But if you do, want to actively do more than just wear less shoe, then there's wonderful toe exercises you can do. One of them is to put an elastic band between your 2 big toes and gently flex out the toe and feel the strength of the big toe re-engaging. Just flex your toes up and down, fold your big toe under your foot while you're in the shower and things like that. Squatting is a wonderful way to build flexibility back into your feet. Even things like standing on a ball just to massage it and reawaken the foot again. So, just actively think about your feet, think about using them more. And there are exercises you can do, a lot of them on our website. We have under a thing called toga to kind of reawaken all the muscles and ligaments and function back into your feet.
Great. I'll put a link to that in the show notes for sure.
And most importantly, look after your kids' feet. Keep them wild and engaged and sensory. And, there's a lot of research now showing that people walking around in padded shoes in a concrete world literally have parts of their brain atrophying because your body is designed to get, and whole parts of your brain, like the part that gets information from your hands, is designed to get information from your feet in a vital, everyday kind of way. And so the more you just take off your shoes and feel the earth under your feet, the better for your brain, the better for your kids' learning, the better for your creativity. As a famous rap star in America said, most deaf, comfortable people don't become revolutionaries. So it's kind of getting away from this padded lifestyle, less padding, more feeling. And that's that's where the way the body is designed is to really feel the nature and be connected to nature. And all this kind of jumping in ice cold baths and all that kind of thing is all part of it. It's your body feeling temperature, feeling hot, cold, everything that has to offer. And I think the one bit of research on things that definitely make humans happier is that the closer they are to nature, the happier they are. And so every little bit in that direction helps.
I think that's a great message and a great place to leave off. So if people want to find out more about you, about the documentary, and anything else to do with foot health, where would be the best place to connect with you?
Me personally, I'm happy to hear from you all. Is my email is galahad@vivobarefoot.com. I'm not a super fast responder, but I try and get around to it. And then our website has sections that are full of exercises and everyday hacks to get back to healthy, natural movement. Yeah, it's pretty intuitive to everyone. I think if you want to see a great example of pure, healthy, natural movement, just watch any 4 or 5-year-old kid running around a swimming pool in bare feet, running on hard concrete, making lots and lots of little steps, their head perfectly balanced above their hips, above their feet. They're laughing, they're relaxed, they're throwing themselves in and out of the pool. And, adults can learn a lot from that movement. And that's something to, we lose it when we go to school and sit down and told to shut up. And, we develop this but, I think aspirationally to run around the pool bare feet, run in and out and chase some kids around is probably, a good summer hack for everyone's feet.
I love it. I'm going to go and do that this afternoon.
Right on.
Well, thank you for coming on the Get Fit Guy podcast. It was great to hear from you, and I'll definitely put links to all of that stuff in the show notes, and I'll embed the video itself, the documentary itself, into the page, because I think it's a very valuable and important message to get out there. There's so many people suffering with foot pain and ankle pain, knee pain, back pain, and it all can be aided, if not cured, by just getting some healthy and strong feet.
And, as we said, that the weaker your feet are, the more the rest of your body has to compensate. So the more strain on the knees, the hips and the back. And we just hear so many cases of people just getting back their natural foot health and then back issues, knee issues just going away. So wish you all a happy journey back to healthy, natural movement and strong feet.
All right, everybody. I want to take one more opportunity to thank Galahad for coming on the podcast. That was really informative and helpful. And make sure you tune in next week, because the next episode of Get Fit Guy is going to be about high-intensity interval training and why it may or may not be the right thing for you. Now, if you enjoyed this podcast, remember you can find me on Facebook and Twitter. I'm Get Fit Guy, and also my own website, brockarmstrong.com. Now, what are you waiting for? Get out there and take off those shoes.